afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. This is the Highly Educated Media Podcast. My name's AJ Fabrizio, and this is my co-host, Matt Gunther. Something really exciting happened recently. A Supreme Court ruling that seems seemingly not connected to what we normally talk about. But I'm just going to let Matt kind of jump into it and talk about the Supreme Court ruling and how that might affect the industry that we're part of.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, AJ. Thanks for the introduction, as always. So this was a ruling that really stood out to me because you and I have had several discussions about the definitions of hemp and marijuana and how they've been misconstrued by legal professionals throughout the country. So whenever you and I have these conversations, I always ask you the question, hey, AJ, could you imagine the media attention that would be given to these procedural law issues if they had to do with firearms instead of cannabis?
Oh yeah, we tend to actually. It's been a pretty common thread in our conversations recently. And if I'm not mistaken, you kind of associate it with what if like THCA being a similar situation that a handgun owner would have if there was a rifle ban and that rifle ban was enforced on them. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment. And for anybody watching this, I'd like you to run this experiment with me here. So what if Congress passed a law regarding firearms that memorialized a legal distinction between handguns and assault rifles? And in this legislative definition, it prevented legal handguns from being treated as illegal assault rifles. It then instructed a regulatory agency to create rules and regulations pertaining to firearms. Here's the question. If, in those rules and regulations, this regulatory agency, presumably the ATF, decided to write a rule stating that handguns are to be treated as assault rifles, this would beg the question, are handguns now illegal, AJ?
I mean, of course not, right? I mean, the ATF wouldn't have the authority to alter the legislative definition.
That's exactly right. And that's what makes the USDA's total THC testing requirement completely unconstitutional. As you and I have discussed, the USDA knows it cannot alter the statutory definition of hemp. This is why the USDA itself clearly states on page 63 of its own final rule, and I quote, "The statutory definition is self-explanatory, and USDA is adopting the same definition without change for Part 990.
Hi, everybody. I'm AJ Fabrizio from Highly Educated Media Podcast. I really like to thank you for your viewership. If you really are enjoying what we're putting out, Matt and I, and you find it educational and helpful, please like and subscribe so that we can continue doing this and bring you pertinent information applied to the industry and anything else that you're interested in. So I think I know where you're going with this, Matt. But for the people listening in and watching, could you explain why the Supreme Court ruling has you all excited when it comes to THCA?
Yeah. So this is what caught my eye. The Supreme Court addressed an issue involving ATF's regulatory authority pertaining to definitions. So some years ago, ATF used what it perceived to be its regulatory authority to impose a ban on bump stocks. However, the Supreme Court majority found that the 1934 law against machine guns defined them as weapons that could automatically fire more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. However, bump stocks don't meet that definition because, and I quote, "the trigger must still be released and re-engaged to fire each additional shot." So more importantly, the Supreme Court referenced over a decade of ATF's own claims that bump stocks aren't automatic weapons.
Wow, Matt. So it sounds like the ATFs, or the voices at the ATF, the regulatory agency, are saying one thing and trying to enforce another. And I mean, as we know, that's pretty much what's been happening with the USDA and their attitude towards THCA, right?
Exactly. And the big takeaway here, AJ, is independent of your position on firearms or cannabis, I think that we can all agree that any legislation or regulation pertaining to these topics must be clear, well-informed, and written for the benefit of the people.
I couldn't agree with you more, Matt. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we love to take the time, or we feel the need to take the time to address these topics. Words have meanings, and it's important that people, business owners and consumers within the industry, stay highly educated when it comes to these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always say, AJ, letters and numbers have meaning. And I think that is the
Yeah.
spirit of highly educated media and what we try to bring to the people. So, with that, and to the people watching at home, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your viewership, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you again, everybody. This is Highly Educated Media Podcast. I'm AJ Fabrizio. This is Matt Gunther, and we look forward to seeing you soon.